Come on, timer. There it goes. I am resident of Collinwood, Joel Sains, here with Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to review The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance or The Man Who Shot Skype, which will be both of us. Um, so, Butch, when did you first see this movie, man?
Oh man, I honestly don't know. It's one of those movies I saw bits and pieces of over the years, and got lucky. I believe on the old Western Channel back when I had cable. I think I caught it one night with a bout of insomnia, and so let's actually saw the full thing somewhere in the mid noughts around 2003, 4, 5. But bits and pieces I'd seen in the 90s.
I actually first saw this when I was like 10 because I was watching Westerns with my grandfather. They were showing John Wayne. The first movie we saw was The Sons of Katie Elder, but The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was coming on next. So we watched The Sons of Katie Elder and then The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Now, as I went on to watch this, my grandfather's telling me not who anyone's playing, but who the actors are. Like I knew who John Wayne was, but I had not seen James Stewart. Mm-hmm. And so he's explaining it to me that James Stewart has been in Westerns and horror movies, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So, and then there's Lee Marvin, and I want to get your thoughts on Lee Marvin playing a villain. Was that shocking to you?
Yeah, because I think the first movie I remember seeing Lee Marvin in was The Dirty Dozen, and he was such the grizzled veteran in that. And there's something else. I think it's The Comancheros that he made with John Wayne, where he plays a villain also. Lee Marvin plays a great villain. I mean, you're rooting for him to get killed the entire time, and he to me that's what a good villain does. I mean, you either want to root against him, or you're like, well, maybe he's really not the villain. He's just misunderstood.
My favorite Western of his that I love, I own it on DVD as well, is The Professionals.
Oh,
and he's not a heel in that movie, but he's sort of heel-ish a bit.
Yeah.
Like I love the interaction between him and the one actor who's co-starring with him, Burt Lancaster. And it's weird because it's like Lancaster's this smooth operator dynamite, and freaking Marvin's like threatening him, like, yeah, if you go, I'll leave you here. I'll kill you myself. Like, what?
I'm going to tell you something that I don't tell many people because I always get this funny look. It's also the same look I get. I'm from the South, as anybody may have noticed. Right. And when you say you don't like biscuits, you get this look on your face that's like, huh? And so I'm going to say something about what you just said. I don't like Burt Lancaster, and I really can't tell you why. But I love him in The Professionals.
Yeah.
I guess maybe because he's not, quote, the star.
Yeah.
But the Kentuckian, I've tried to watch him in so many films, and it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's like, God, I hate him, and I just turn it.
We'll get into a full Burt Lancaster discussion when we do The Professionals, because we are going to cover that movie as well. But it is interesting because Marvin, I think just him and Marvin were perfect in that film together. Their chemistry fit.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I'm not taking anything away from Kirk Douglas and him when they played Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, but I'm not saying they did a bad job. But to me, it just didn't fit for me. You know.
Yeah.
And there's just people who you can't see them in a tough guy role, but you can see them in a charismatic role. And Lancaster. Okay, I'll give a great example. Field of Dreams, which Burt Lancaster, he's playing a charismatic character, but he's also a caring character at the same time, and it works. And I think that's when Burt Lancaster's playing this charismatic hero, sort of like a Han Solo, it works for him. But when he's playing like this ruthless character that you sort of like, it doesn't seem to fit him for whatever reason.
No, he was not Wyatt Earp for me, though.
No.
that Kirk Douglas as Doc Holliday. For a long time, it was James Garner was wider for me. No offense to Hugh O'Brien from the TV show, but then I saw Tombstone and Kurt Russell. Man, Kurt Russell is wider, but Burt Lancaster, no. He's kind of like some of our actors that Patrick has, our mutual friend Patrick McRae has pointed out to me. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is a great supporting actor.
Yeah.
He's great when he's against type.
Yeah.
But when playing, I can't watch those Mission Impossible films. I just start laughing. I'm like, I don't buy it. And it's a similar reaction with Burt Lancaster.
I think the first one was the best one because it made it. He didn't seem like he was gonna make it out of there through the whole movie. But then once they did all them sequels, that's where, to me, it became laughable. And yes, we go off topic here because I'm the host.
While we're off topic, I'll throw my DVD up.
There you go. I like that. I love that. I just got the Searchers in the mail, so I was really excited.
That, I always say the Searchers and the Shootist are Wayne's two best acting jobs. Though this one isn't too far below it. Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yep. I wish we could tie Matt Damon down and have him watch this fucking film. That way we could say, just watch it, fucker, watch it. And he could live with it. It really, I'll tell you who I love in this movie too is Woody Strode as Pompey. He really just, when he's on screen, he commands it a bit, even next to Wayne, which is great.
Woody Strode does that for me in any film he's in. He's one of those actors. I mean, you kind of look at him as an actor, but knowing, his life story and everything about him, he's just an interesting guy.
Yeah, he does this really good job as working for Wayne's character, and I love how in this movie, because I had seen Stagecoach after this, that Wayne. Because again, this was the second John Wayne movie I had seen, and Wayne's character is in love with a woman, and but the woman sort of feels for James Stewart's character. So there's sort of this triangle, and I think that's what makes this movie so great is the mystery of what's going to happen. Is Lee Marvin's character going to be the only villain? When I first saw this, I thought Wayne's character was going to turn heel and shoot James Stewart's character.
Yeah, I find it funny. I was making some mental thoughts when I watched this the other night. I like to try and watch it, or at least part of it, before we talk about movies, and just refresh my memory.
Yeah.
And I've always had the feeling that we're supposed to view John Wayne's character, Tom Donahoe, as maybe not the bad guy, but he's not the good guy. And the thing is, he is the good guy. He's the one that saves the day. Very un-John Wayne-ish. His character, after spoiler alert, after he shoots Liberty Valance, lets Jimmy Stewart takes credit and lets him take Vera Miles. I can't even think of her name at the moment, character's name. And he just, he'd been building a house for her. They were going to get married, and everybody knew it. And he's like, no. And it just, again, a very underrated performance and a very underrated character. I was watching it. When I was watching it, I had this thought. John Wayne's character is James P. Kirk.
Yeah.
And Stewart is John Luke Picard. John. When Kirk in the original series is out there, it's the Wild West. And sometimes you have to make a hard call, and sometimes you got to bend the rules, just like Tom Donahoe does. And Jimmy Stewart, Flash, Jean-Luc Picard, he's the guy we all kind of want to be that can just, he comes and talks to you, and everybody sits in a circle and shares their feelings, and everything works out. And we would like that to work, but some people that's not going to work with, and it's not going to work with Liberty Valance.
Right. I think the one thing that the man who shot Liberty Valance doesn't get enough credit for, what you're sort of alluding to, and I love what you're alluding to, is the Old West. You didn't settle things with words. You settled it with a bullet, with a gun. And really, that's how the West was. And it just, it's why there were shootouts. It's why there was, gunfights. So Wayne's character is the perfect representation of that. And so is Lee Marvin's character too in this movie. They're the representation of what the West was. And here's James Stewart. He's what the West is going to be, or what they're trying to make it. Because he tries to get the girl's character to read. He says, "Read this," and she's like, and she gets back because she can't. And he teaches her because he's a lawyer, and it's sort of like what's weird. It's almost like, what if Lincoln would have lived and went west, almost in a weird way. And I know that might be an odd comparison to some, but he really, because again, this guy is not a gun. James Stewart, there are westerns. He's a great gunfighter. He could play any character. That's what was great about James Stewart, and so could Wayne. So you have two actors who can literally play any character. But here's James Stewart. He's not playing a character who can shoot a gun. He's playing an educated man a civilized man who's living in an uncivilized world.
Yes, very much so. And the world he's coming to isn't ready for him.
Yep.
For him to survive, he needs if you will, the guide, the person that knows the lay of the land, metaphorically speaking, to show him. And I remember watching as a kid, and I was, younger, and just like, Rance Stoddard, he's the great guy, he's the hero. And I watch it now, and it's like, he's the well-intentioned guy. And he may be a great guy. I think it's kind of like he's a good man, and he means well, but he gets painted into a corner and has to accept something that, when you watch the last scene, when that guy on the train, nothing's too good for the man who shot Liberty Valance, and the look on his and Vera Miles' face.
Yep.
God, we're so sick of this, but they have to keep living that.
It's one of the most because in many ways, Citizen Kane's going to do a similar thing. It does a similar thing too, where when fact becomes legend, you print the legend. That's a line in this movie, and it's a great line. But it's true because the West, especially, were built upon legends. And Billy the Kid, Butch and Sundance. And yes, there's a movie called Butch and the Sundance Kid that we're going to cover on this channel too. But it's really, that's what the West was built on, the foundation, and then just stacked up on taunt. So everybody believes, hey, he shot Liberty Valance. That's what's fact to them. So once the newspaper man hears the truth, it's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. It the paper guy, the Shinbone Star.
Yeah.
To me, he just comes off as an asshole, especially when they're there in the where Tom's body is at the beginning.
Yep.
They're all sitting there, Pompey and God, I can't. Andy Devine, his character, the Mark. Well, God, I hate that voice. But here comes the publisher of the paper, and I'm sorry, that's not good enough, sir. I'm like, it's like, somebody needs to just come over and pick you up and throw your ass out. there's a casket right here. Can't see me. I got past the camera. There's a casket right here, and you're just like, my readers deserve to know. They can wait 5 minutes. They can wait 10 minutes. But at the end, when he takes the notes from the reporter, rips them and throws them into the fire and says, print the legend. That's a great moment. And for me, it redeems him from being the asshole at the beginning of the film.
It does. I think the biggest difference too is where James Stewart's character. Sorry for bumbling. James Stewart's character, who's being civil with him and talking to him. If it was Tom Donahue, if it was John Wayne's character, he'd get up and start punching.
But by then we're into the new West.
Yeah, right. We're into the civilized West. This isn't the. I love how they set this up too for the flashback. It's the same stagecoach he came in on. That was so good. Just as a plot device, it was so good.
It is, and it ties you into that so quick, and you don't have to have the camera effect and it's scaring. It's just like, well, it might be this one. I believe it is, and just boom, you're in it. Let's do it. Let's get to this story and tell it.
Is Andy Devine's character more annoying here or in Stagecoach?
Here, because I have to hear him more.
I don't know. See, when we get into Stagecoach, I'm going to make a case he gives a run for the money on that one. But no, I love how John Wayne in this. He's very soft with the woman, but he's ready to be rough with James Stewart's character too. Like, you got to fight. Like, there's no John Wayne is trying to get it across to James Stewart's character. There's no backing down from this. There's only one way you're going to fight Lee Marvin's character, and that's by a gun. And there was no converting the cowboys. That's another message this movie really gives so well. That the cowboys, they're not converting to your ways. Ever. When Tom dies, in every way, the cowboy that he was, and really, so does Lee Marvin's character. Even though he gets killed, they die who they were. They don't change with the times or that's not who they were. That's not the men they were. And that's what this movie is, just such a great representation of that.
I'm going to argue that point.
Go ahead.
I'll grant you Lee Marvin, Liberty Valance.
Okay.
Tom is the middle ground between Liberty Valance and Rance Stoddard, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Because he can live in Liberty's world and he's fine.
Yep.
But he understands enough of Rance's world. I mean, because here's this woman, everybody expected him, and he sees that she's fallen in love with him, and rather than being an ass, he just steps aside and basically says, "Whatever makes you happy, honey." Yeah. And that's one thing. Hey, one thing we've been tiptoeing around, and I want to mention: such a great cast, so many actors in it.
Yep, Woody Strode, who plays Pompey. We know John Wayne. We know James Stewart. We know Lee Marvin. Andy.
Edmund O'Brien from My Favorite Western, The Wild Bunch, as he plays, the original publisher Peabody. And then you got John Carradine as Major Cassius Starbuckle. Oh, God, I cannot stress how much I love to hear John Carradine talk. If the man was alive, I'd pay him money to read my grocery list. We're going here to get bananas.
You really have a great cast in this movie, and everybody bounces off each other really well. And that's another thing too. Like, Westerns, the reason people should watch Westerns is because they were well written. they weren't just, they were well acted, sure, but they were well written too. The writers knew what they were doing. And this movie especially, from, it's not just the main characters, it's the side characters. The fact that James Stewart's character is in the kitchen trying to cook, trying to wash dishes, and he's trying to teach the girl how to read. It's like, dude, you know there's a guy gunning for you. He wants your life. It's like, come on.
This is one of the films that I've seen some westerns, and I'm sure you have too, that are very point A, point B. That's it. The ones like this that carry on and have meaning and continue to be talked about, as obviously we're doing right here, right now. They may still be point A and point B, but the way they do it and how it's done, being in black and white, is one of the reasons I never watched it. I was turned off a little bit. I'm not turned off by black and white, but there's something about black and white westerns that get on my nerves.
Right.
There are some good ones, don't get me wrong. This is, of course, one of them. But it you come around and you see this, and it's just, it speaks to you. You can see the changing of the times from Liberty and Tom to Rance and Hallie. That was her name, Vera Miles Hallie. But yeah, talking also about other actors. You got Denver Powell, unfortunately best known as Uncle Jesse from the god awful Dorks of Hazzard. Strother Martin, who makes a great villain with that high voice, Liberty, and Lee Von Cleef, who made everything better. But yeah, I every time I watch it, I'm like, God, I forget how many good actors are in this.
It's crazy because Lee Van Cleef is going to go on to be known for the Dollar Trilogy, just like Clint Eastwood is. But he had a career before that, so.
Hey, I had wondered if Lee Von Cleef's character in the one where the guy's the sheriff and he's going to retire and his wife wants him to retire. Can't remember what. So it's actually the reason that John Ford and John Wayne made Rio Bravo.
I know, yeah.
I wonder if Lee Von Cleef's character in High Noon is related to his character in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Maybe that's both of them are ne'er-do-wells.
It could be. That's a good one.
Help Snake Plissken escape from New York.
Right? When I saw Lee Van Cleef, I'm like, it's fucking Lee Van Cleef. How you had to know John Carpenter did that on purpose. Like,
John Ford is John Carpenter, one of John, or at least he said, is John Carpenter's favorite director. So, he would have gladly had any of those people he could.
Yeah, it's weird, like to see a Western from in color to black and white, because when I saw Sons of Katie Eller and then I saw this, I said to my grandfather, I said, so how many good black and white Westerns are there? And he said what you said, more than you think. And by the way, when we get into Nevada Smith, that's gonna be my mother yelled at me for that one. But actually my grandfather for that one. But it's really interesting that I agree with you. Tom did change in a sense because, like you said, he saw the town was changing too. They were ready for change. I think that's what Tom saw most, John Wayne's character. And he does sort of relay that too in this movie. Not just to James Stewart's character, but when he sets his barn on fire, like the thing's on fire, that to me is the moment where he knows it's over. He's ready to move on. And that was a sign too. I love how they do the flashback where he's smoking a cigarette and he blows it to where who shot Liberty Valance. It's a great effect. Even to this day, it's one of the coolest looking things.
Yeah, this is, in my mind, this is one of the films that uses black and white properly. I was watching a video earlier tonight with Lee Marvin talking about how he liked black and white, at least for this film, because if something's in color, like, oh, here's a red rose. Well, your eyes are drawn to that red rose.
Yeah.
To, he's smoking and there's smoke and the light diffuses and it can show some things and it can't show others. And it really adds to it. Also, another thing I noticed with this film, it's more gritty than the usual John Ford, because usually his films are very, I'm going to use the term I read on Wikipedia on the page for Liberty Valance. Usually his films are much more mythic,
Right.
and almost a down and dirty, gritty, in the good way, film in story to be told.
It's not quite grainy, but it feels grainy at times. Like
Yeah.
it's on that line, and it walks it very well, because he really, in a way, he's telling this, like, The Searchers is a dark tale in color, but this is a dark tale in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it, like, to me, if this movie were shot in color, it wouldn't have worked. Like, I don't, even with the acting, like, there would have been, like, there are just some movies we talked about are meant to be seen in black and white or shot that way. And this is one of those examples, because he's using, here's where The Searchers is like desert porn, if you will.
It is. No, exactly. It is.
And this is more, we're showing you a train, we're showing you the town. And I love how, too, there's a difference between the size of the town then and the size of the town now. That's another thing Ford gets across with his cinematography. The change, the difference. It's so, John Ford is probably the best, or if not one of the best directors of all time, because of the way he knew how to shoot a movie. Because he told a story with his camera very well.
He another thing I read, pardon me, on Wikipedia said that another reason thought that they filmed it in black and white was Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne were both approaching their mid-50s and were a little old to be playing those characters, and that the black and white made it easier to hide those differences. And after reading that and then watching the film, I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but I can see it. It does have, because Jimmy Stewart, he looks like he's 20, 30.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's maybe 30-ish, but also he's had a hard life, so he looks a little older, but he's been out riding in the sun, so he's going to look older.
Right. I think that's the thing, too. Like, Jimmy's, it's weird, because Jimmy Stewart gets passed over for his age for North by Northwest, and Cary Grant was actually older than him, I think, when he did the movie, which is weird. It's like, well, it's because one looked older than the other, so that's why they went with Cary Grant.
Yeah.
But,
Let's see, this was what, 60, 61, 62, I think?
Yeah.
I was reading a biography of Jimmy Stewart, and he was still experiencing PTSD during this time. And that's when after World War II, you see him start taking some chances in films like North by Northwest and this and Vertigo and Harvey and all those kind of films. And to me, this is when you start seeing him really become Jimmy Stewart / everyman. He's in a film, every guy can relate to him. He's not John Wayne. You're not meant to relate with John Wayne. You're supposed to emulate him or look at him as a hero. Jimmy Stewart guy, you look at him, you can identify with him. I look at him, I can identify with him. some guy across the world can watch it and go, yeah, that he's just kind of an every guy.
There's roles that Jimmy Stewart played though that we're gonna get into down the road where he's not necessarily playing a good guy. He's playing a anti-hero, and the anti-hero is so questionable because he was a villain. And that's how great James Stewart really was though as an actor. He could play that role and be that character where he seems so nice, but he's so rough with people, but he's got that nice tone until he gets pissed off, and it's like, this dude's a cold-blooded killer.
I would have loved to have seen Jimmy Stewart to get a chance to play a straight up villain like Henry Fonda did in Once Upon a Time, and just see him be this really good looking guy, and the if you will, kind of the going deep on my comics here, post crisis Lex Luthor, where everybody thinks he's a great guy and he does all this nice stuff, and everybody that talks bad about him is just jealous. And then you get to the private part, and he is just the meanest, dirtiest, ugliest SOB that you've ever had the misfortune to lay eyes on.
It's crazy because he didn't play. I can only remember him being two villains, and it was so early in his career. One was Rope for Hitchcock, and or no, not Rope. He was a good guy, but there was a movie he was in that he was the. But it's been so long since he's. That's what's crazy. Like, he didn't play. I think he only literally played one actual villain, and the rest, he's either a good guy or anti-hero. But you're right. He could have just easily played a heel, and it would have been believable.
What you're talking about, I keep thinking of Vertigo, and we empathize with him and we feel with him, and if you watch that and the things that he makes, the female actress do, makes her get a haircut like his lost love, makes her dress like that. At the time, it may not have seemed quite as malevolent, but every time I watch him, it's like, okay, obviously, number one, he's hung up on the dead woman, but two, he's doing everything in his power to turn her in to the dead woman, and it's just like, dude,
this, in many ways, it's a much creepier version, but without the murder of Norman Bates.
Mm-hmm.
Like, James Stewart could have played Norman Bates, and if you watch Vertigo, he proves it.
Oh yeah.
Like, I agree with you. You sort of, it's weird. You go from feeling sorry for James Stewart's character in Vertigo to feeling sorry for this woman, but it's crazy because he's making you realize that they're the same people. She did do this once before, but it's like, even though you're getting at it, it's like, yeah, but aren't you sort of pushing this a bit far? Like, but there's no telling this character that.
No.
And it's like, that's how obsessed he becomes. You almost begin to think, when they go back up to the bell tower, you almost think, is he gonna push her?
I thought that the first time I saw, maybe not even realize it,
Right.
or maybe do it and save her. Like, okay, purge that demon, if you will, relive it and save her. And this time, he's the hero in his mind, and she's going, dude just tried to kill me.
I kept waiting for him to grab her and lean her over the edge. Did you do it? Like, he's that, because he was that gone to me. Like, I'm waiting for it. And then even if he would have killed her, it wouldn't have shocked me.
No.
But when she sort of gets scared by the nun, like, I sort of wonder if that was just wrote in there to sort of save Stewart's character's, like, hero. But it's like, dude, just go all the way.
After wondering, was he going to I guess it's the second or third time I watched Vertigo, I was like, did she jump? This is the only way she's going to get away from this nutcase.
Right.
I like to think that she went down about 10 feet and had a rope or something and waited for him for Scotty to leave, and she's like, "Help me up, Mother Teresa," and climbs back up and gets to go live her life.
See, James Stewart could have played one of the Sawyer family members in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it would have worked.
I was actually just thinking he could have played Ed Gein very well. Other than the fact Ed Gein was a ugly, ugly man, and Jimmy Stewart is Jimmy Stewart. I'm sure he get drawn in, but
somebody said, was Jimmy Stewart handsome? I'm like, no, but you're a man. I'm like, yeah. If I were a woman, I'd tell you no too. I'm like, great actor, not handsome, not at all, not one bit, not to me. No.
It's what's inside of him that would make him, or at least the characters he plays, be attractive, because he is. Most of his characters at least start off or are trying to be good men and do the right thing.
Yeah.
But some of them lose their way, as we've discussed, and some get lucky. Such in here is in the case of Liberty Valance, and even then, there's that twist, almost a Twilight Zone, Black Mirror twist for the kids out there, where he has to, for the rest of his life, he's known for something that he tried to do and obviously disgusted him, but failed, but now gets credit for.
That's the thing too. Like James Stewart's character in this, he can't shoot a gun worth shit. Like any other of his Western characters, sure, but this character, it's because the movie I saw after this with him was Bend of the River, and he was well, we'll get into that, but he was the son of a bitch in that movie, but he could shoot in that movie. So when you watch this, when I kept thinking about The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, I'm like, holy shit, James Stewart got some range from going to not shooting to where he can't to now he's this gunslinger and cattleman gunslinger. But it's like, holy shit, dude, like you got some raw talent there. Amazing performance. And like you said, he gets this credit for something he didn't do. And I agree with you, but when they're on that train leaving and he hears anything from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, it's like, God, please just stop. Please stop. But he's got to live it.
Something I've always wondered is what happened to Tom after Rance and Hallie left.
Yeah.
What did he do for the 20, 30-ish years in between? I mean, I presume he was still, as the song goes, punch them doggies and rode had the cowboy back. I just always wonder, what did he actually die of, But as we've said before, to me, that's part of being a good film is it asks you questions or it puts things up there and you go, huh, I wonder what.
I have a theory for you. Tom died of a broken heart in the long run. Tom died. No, to me, what I gather from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, there was no one faster than Tom. Sort of like a Doc Holliday, if you will, but not to the degree of Holliday. But he's as fast as him. And so no one's beating him on the draw. What kills him is the woman he loved. He had to let her go. But in the end, I'm not saying he died right away, but because he did, they indicate he died an old man. But he died of a broken heart.
Body died a long time after he died.
Yep. I agree 1,000%. What's your favorite part in this movie?
Man, you ask me this, and I always try to think about it, and it's like, shit, I can't pick one. So I'm going to go with when they go to the Capitol to be nominated, and Carradine is, John Carradine, Long John is, this man is a murderer. And Rance gets up and walks out. Excuse me, hold on just a sec. In my mouth and my throat's getting dry. And Rant, he's like, I'm going to go home. And where are you going? And where you going, Pilgrim? I'm going to go home. And I don't want to be known as the man who shot Liberty Valance. Like you said, he lights that cigarette and goes, you didn't shoot Liberty Valance. And basically, on top of saving them, trying to teach the man how to live in this world of the Wild West, on top of saving his life and killing his enemy, and letting him have his girl or their girl or whatever, sits him down and gives him the kick in the ass that he needs. It's like, dude, you go in there, you taught her to read, you go over there and you give her something to read about.
Yeah.
And, that's a man.
Yep.
To do all those things, and he doesn't expect anything other than he wants Pilgrim, as he calls him, to go do what he's supposed to do.
My favorite scene is Woody Strode, John Wayne, and they're hiding in the dark now, Pompey, and Woody Strode, the perfect time in between Strode and Wayne, and this isn't the first time they have perfect time, and they have it all throughout the movie, and it's just such a great scene. Then he just pops Lee Marvin's Liberty Valance. That is my favorite scene.
Something else I noticed, and it's not really mentioned. Well, it's mentioned at one time. The kind of inherent racism against poor Woody Strode's character, Pompey. He has to eat inside. There's one scene where he comes in and the old Swedish guy, oh, no, Pompey, I don't want to be talking to you. And he doesn't say, hey, you got to go outside and eat. Yeah. But the invitation is there for me. And, unfortunately, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. Westerns really describe their time. Like, their movie... when you watch a Western, for those who have never watched one, it touches upon the racism that happened in there. Not just this movie, there are other movies that we're going to discuss that do this very same thing. Not necessarily to African Americans, but to Indians as well. But you're right. Even I think John Wayne's character speaks up about this. But
yeah, after he keeps Liberty and he goes in to get a drink, and Woody Strode's Pompey comes in and he's like, Tom, I don't allow. You don't allow what?
Yep. He's like, he's daring him to say it, dude. Like, say it and I'll knock your head off.
Tom and Liberty, as they say, are two separate sides of the same coin. Liberty is like some people I know who never mentally progressed past about the age of 19, and they live their lives, what they want to do. That they never mature, they never take on responsibility. It's just them. And Tom is the complete opposite, but they're almost, at least physically, maybe even, like, if you will, in the beginning of their characters' lives, they're almost the same character. It's just Tom, I want to say, is smarter, or was raised better, or has, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, has a bit more wisdom and realizes this world doesn't. Liberty thinks the world revolves around him. Yeah. Tom knows that the world doesn't revolve around anybody.
And I think the thing of it is, too, the one thing I take away from Tom and Liberty, they've both seen the same world. Like, they've both seen the open range, the frontier. they've been down where Tom has probably shot people when he's had to. He hasn't. This isn't. Tom's not afraid to do the thing that needs done because he's done it before. Where James Stewart's character hasn't, but like you said, Lee Marvin's character too is the same, sort of the same side of the coin, where he's evil though. He has not. I agree with you. He thinks the world revolves around him, and he also, if he has to kill somebody, set a building on fire, he'll do it.
Yeah, he's I don't know. Apparently, D&D comparison that Tom is a very chaotic good.
Yep.
I'll do this because it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
Where he is arguably neutral or chaotic evil. He just does whatever the hell he wants. Whatever, Now he does. There's the talk about he gets paid by the cattlemen, so arguably a hired gun. And I don't remember when Horace Greeley said that about Go West, Young Man, but I've always thought this was post Civil War, and that Tom and probably Liberty were both Civil War vets, or at least grew up around that time. So Tom has obviously killed. Liberty's obviously killed. It's like people would talk about veterans like my grandfather. My grandfather was in World War II. My grandfather almost never talked about World War II.
Right.
That growing when I grew up, that was how, and almost the little mental thing, how you could tell a real veteran, they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to tell you, oh, I killed 137 Nazis or whatever. That wasn't them.
Yes. My grandfather was in World War II too, and he said something. He said, "Yeah, I was in the war." He goes, "No man wants to talk about killing another man, ever." And when he said that, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, but I got what he was saying too. It's like nobody, you're taking another man's life, no matter what. Like, yes, it's for a reason, but you're still taking another person's life at the end of the day, and there's no discussing that in a proud way of where, hey, I killed this, bragging about it. Like soldiers have, there's that honor code of the soldier, and I think that's something my grandfather was getting across to me and my brother and my cousins, as your father was too. But yeah, okay, James Stewart or John Wayne? Who's your favorite in this movie?
John Wayne. Not even.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's doing what's got to be done.
Yeah, me too. There's other movies where James Stewart's gonna be the man, but this ain't it. Just as John Wayne and Lee Marvin, and really Woody Strode as well. I think just the characters in this movie are amazing to watch. And if you have not seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, shame on you! Shame on you! Goddammit!
Go watch it now.
That's right. What's the next movie you want to discuss? I'll let you pick.
You want to do a Western?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
I'll name two, and I'll let you pick. So we both do it. My favorite Western of all time, The Wild Bunch.
Ooh.
One of my newer favorites, Open Range with Kevin Costner.
I've seen that one too. They're both good. Shit. Let's do Open Range, okay. And then the after that we'll do The Wild Bunch.
Okay.
So next,
we were talking about the guy having to do what needs to be done, and guy that knows to kill. I was thinking about Kevin Costner's character in Open Range.
Mm-hmm.
Showdown at the end, and he's talking to boss. He's like, Boss Spearman. He's like, well, only a few of them will probably be killers, and everything he says, of course, is right because this is the star and the director and the producer, but still, and that's what he's doing is doing what's right. And like Tom, he doesn't take happiness at taking that life. And again, when you're talking about your grandfather, I was thinking about Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, saying it's a rough, horrible thing. I think it's a horrible thing, but to take everything a man has and all he'll ever be. And I know it's a movie and I know it's an actor reading a line, but I think that's a bit of truth right there.
Yeah, you take away he has or all he's gonna have, and I think that's the thing too. It's true. It's 1000% true. But and by the way, when we cover Open Range, know this going in, people. Kevin Costner turned down Kill Bill for Open Range, and he did the right thing. He made the right call.
Tangent alert. By the time Kill Bill came out, my opinion of Quentin Tarantino had been made, and I think I've said it to you several times. I'm just not fond of him. I've seen maybe not all, but I've seen most of the films he likes. I can tell you what films he's ripping off a lot of the times or was inspired by.
Yeah.
No desire to go see Kill Bill. The only thing I was even slightly interested in was David Carradine was going to be in it. And I was so hoping David Carradine would get a career renaissance like John Travolta did. Yes, that's on purpose. With Pulp Fiction. Unfortunately, he didn't. And so group of guys I used to hang out with, like, no, come on. So we go see Kill Bill 1. And I leave the theater the same way. I'm like, it's like every time I leave a theater with seeing a Quentin Tarantino movie, I feel like I've seen this film before. I've seen it 2 or 3 times because I know which 2 or 3 films it's coming from. And so when Kill Bill 2 came out, I'm not going to go see this. No, I'm not going to see this. The only reason I went is someone paid my way. And I sat there and the only time I was interested was when David Carradine was in it, and when it was the fights going on, and I like Uma Thurman, I really do, but it's just like and they said, so what'd you think? And I'm like I said, I've seen this film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally to take your saying, I 1000% agree. Kevin Costner was right. Open Range is an underrated classic, modern classic that more people should see, and I look forward to us discussing it and hopefully giving it some more exposure that it deserves.
Is next Saturday good for you, or do you need more time? Or
I'll get back to you. How about that?
Okay, I'll message you during the week, obviously. For Butch Rosenbalm, who was amazing, awesome job, my friend. Thank you for coming on here and doing this with me. We're going to continue our Westerns series with Open Range, which is an awesome movie. For Butch Rosenbalm, I'm Joel Saints. Butch, man, take care. Have a great night.
You as well, my friend. Live long and prosper, and thank you for having me.
Anytime, man. Bye-bye.
See ya.